This is wrestling's greatest moments.
Hey now, wrestling fans. It's time for another episode of Wrestling's Greatest Moments. Wrestling fans have seen many incredible moments in the squared circle, but there are also many possible paths that wrestlers might have taken had circumstances been different. Sit back as Wrestling's Greatest Moments looks at what if Magnum T.A. didn't have his car crash. On October 14th, 1986, 27-year-old Magnum T.A., aka Terry Allen, was driving a Porsche 911. The vehicle skidded on a wet road. The car plowed into a utility pole, trapping him inside the vehicle, as described in the book, The Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, Heroes and Icons. Allen never lost consciousness, but his fifth cervical vertebrae had burst, and he had no sensation below his chest. Emergency responders knew they had a crisis on their hands. At 6'3" and 235 pounds, he was too big to pull from the tiny sports car, so they spent the next hour removing the car from him, opening the door with an air chisel, peeling away the top with a hydraulic cutter, yanking the steering wheel, which trapped Allen with the jaws of life hook. The accident, described as a fluke, proved catastrophic, and Magnum was told he'd be lucky if he was able to sit up in a wheelchair and to be fed. Refusing to give up, Magnum fought with the same determination that led him to go from losing every match but one as a freshman wrestler to pinning every opponent the year he won the private school state wrestling championship. Over time, Magnum T.A. built to life outside wrestling, showing undeniable courage and resolve. However, what if Magnum T.A. hadn't crashed his Porsche? There are many variables where he could have avoided the accident. First, the accident was described as a fluke. It was also noted that had he been driving a different vehicle, his Porsche was a rear-wheel drive, he likely wouldn't have skidded. What if Magnum, who had wrestled on October 13th, had a change of plans, went home earlier, or stayed out longer? What if he had been driving slower? Although Magnum was believed to be driving slightly over the speed limit, excess speed reportedly played no role in the accident. Even something as simple as a flat tire could have changed history. Magnum could have put on a spare tire and driven slower, careful not to tax the spare tire. In another scenario, he could have skipped driving home and had a friend drive him home instead. A bright future. Although his accident ended his career far too early, Magnum was already a megastar in Jim Crockett Promotions. Terry Allen entered the wrestling world when he was 19, moving from one territory to another until he broke out into the main event in Bill Watts' Mid-South Wrestling as Magnum T.A. As Allen recalls things, Andre the Giant, who had befriended Allen early in his career when Allen chauffeured him around the Pacific Northwest Territory during Andre's tour, suggested he adopt the nickname. While in Florida, Andre said to me, "You're ready, boss, to do something big. But you need a name, you need a handle." That's exactly what he called it. A handle. Andre said, "You look like that guy on TV. You should be Magnum T.A. It sounded great. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, and he was going back to Vince Sr. to tell him about me, to pitch it, and have me come up there and work for them." Magnum began making big money in Mid-South Wrestling, recalling making 6 figures for the first time in my wrestling career. Still, Magnum was willing to bet on himself, and when Dusty Rhodes, now booking Jim Crockett Promotions, invited him to work in the territory, Magnum said yes. This was a risky move because the territory's owner, Jim Crockett Jr., told Magnum, "I can't guarantee you that money today. I can guarantee you'll make half of that to start, and we'll give you the biggest push anybody can ever want to get." Magnum's gamble paid off, and he quickly became one of the area's top babyfaces. His good looks and athleticism made him a natural, as did the style he'd spent years developing. According to Magnum, he had a very specific idea of how he wanted to present himself in the ring. "I wanted to be the best wrestling tactician class brawler who was in shape that anybody had ever seen. That was my goal. I had a personal goal to every night make believers out of everybody in that building." The style impressed fans, turning Magnum into one of wrestling's greatest heroes. At the time, Magnum was in the very select club of wrestlers who had played a babyface throughout their career. Magnum rides on. In this world of what if, Magnum drives home, arriving safe and sound. However, what was next for the former United States champion? Starrcade 86 was coming soon, and Magnum T.A. would be a big part of the show. Just how big is a question. Would he have wrestled NWA World Heavyweight Champion Ric Flair for the title? Prior to his accident, Magnum had been feuding with gorgeous Jimmy Garvin, occasionally wrestling Nikita at house shows to regain the United States Championship. The focus seemed to be on keeping Magnum busy with a program that didn't burn out the money inherent in a major rematch between Magnum and the Russian Nightmare at Jim Crockett Promotions' biggest show of the year, Starrcade. Despite Magnum's booking before his accident, there has been speculation that Jim Crockett Promotions was gearing up for a Magnum vs. Flair match at Starrcade. Part of this belief may be due to Nikita Koloff wrestling Flair at Starrcade 86 for the title. On October 24, 1986, Nikita Koloff shocked the wrestling world when he turned babyface, aligning himself with Dusty Rhodes in a match against the Four Horsemen. Koloff, who was still U.S. champion, was a hated heel, that is until Magnum's accident. Jim Crockett Promotions booker Dusty Rhodes cooked up a program where Nikita had returned from a tour of Japan and learned of Magnum's accident. Although he and Magnum were on different sides of the fence, Nikita had come to respect Magnum during their Best of 7 series, and the man nicknamed the Russian Nightmare decided to join forces with Dusty. This incredible babyface turn worked, and Nikita was suddenly one of the promotion's hottest babyfaces. Dusty capitalized on this by booking Nikita against Flair at Starrcade 86, Night of the Skywalkers, with a bout ending in a double disqualification. For some fans, it makes sense that if Nikita, the babyface and U.S. champion, wrestled Flair, then Magnum would have been in line save for his accident. However, wrestling historian and Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling expert Dick Bourne argues the Magnum vs. Flair bout at Starrcade 86 is wishful thinking. The story with Nikita pretty much shatters any Magnum wins the NWA title at Starrcade 86 theories, because Magnum was always going to regain the US title from Nikita at Starrcade. Dusty had spent the entire year of 1986 setting that up. And consider these facts. Magnum's accident was on 10/12/86. It was only 6 weeks before Starrcade. Bourne points out how Dusty Rhodes' booking style was for the babyface to chase for the title, win it, then lose it before chasing for it again. In his article, Bourne charts how Dusty had Magnum chase and defeat Wahoo McDaniel for the U.S. Championship before Magnum dropped it to Tully Blanchard. This led to the famous I Quit match between Magnum and Tully at Starrcade 85, where Magnum regained the belt. For more about this series, check out our video, Magnum vs. Tully, The Road to I Quit, Part 1. Subsequently, Magnum battled Nikita Koloff in a Best of 7 series for the U.S. title, losing in the 7th match due to outside interference from Nikita's allies. As far as Bourne is concerned, there was nothing at that moment in time that even hinted at a Flair Magnum matchup at Starrcade 86. In fact, all of Magnum's interviews that were taped in some cases mere hours before the accident were focused on a program with Jimmy Garvin. It was a program to run a few short weeks to keep Magnum out of the ring with Nikita at house shows. In the weeks leading up to Starrcade, Magnum was going to face Nikita Koloff at Starrcade to get his U.S. title back, a match Dusty had meticulously booked since February of that year. 6 weeks out from Starrcade, he wasn't going to suddenly put Magnum with Flair and abandon his entire year-long Magnum Nikita program he had worked so hard to create. The idea that Magnum T.A. was being built up to become the NWA World Heavyweight Champion is no fantasy. According to Dusty Rhodes, the new heir to the throne would have been him. He was the heir to what throne I had at that time in our organization. He was definitely groomed to be the king. Then shizzle happens. Wrestling historian and author Tim Hornbaker agrees, writing, he, Magnum, was on a very short list of potential world heavyweight champions and considered a logical successor to Flair. Dick Bourne makes a convincing argument, and there's no reason to think Dusty would have passed on the chance for an epic encounter between Magnum and Nikita at Starrcade. With the Cold War still going strong, it would be easy to capitalize on patriotism and continue building this as a battle of the superpowers. There are many matches that could have been used to settle the score. It's unlikely Dusty would have settled for anything but a stipulation match, and given his fondness for cage matches, a cage match seems ideal, especially for the company's biggest show of the year. Would Rhodes have added an extra stipulation such as I Quit? That seems unnecessary and repetitive since it was a stipulation for the previous year's cage match involving Magnum. Instead, Jim Crockett Promotions would announce a special enforcer at ringside to prevent any interference from Nikita's allies, Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev. Dick Murdoch was working as a babyface at the time and seems like a good candidate. One question that comes up regarding Starrcade 86 is who Ric Flair would have defended his title against. Here, Dusty Rhodes seems like a bad choice, as he'd lost at Starrcade 84 and 85. Although Rhodes had defeated Flair earlier in the year for the title, Jim Crockett Promotions would likely have wanted something different. Not to mention that Dusty was embroiled in a feud with Tully Blanchard over the World Television Championship. Although he was still competing in championship wrestling from Florida, Barry Windham seems like a good choice, as he'd return to Jim Crockett Promotions soon enough. Crockett could easily renew their rivalry from the past and build up this match. As for Magnum versus Nikita, fans would witness a bloody bout as both men fought tooth and claw, whether it was a Cold War tensions driving the match or both men's fiercely competitive nature. Fans would witness a match even more violent than Magnum's I Quit match against Tully Blanchard. As the match reaches the 20-minute mark, things go sideways when referee Scrappy McGowan is clobbered after Magnum charges Nikita into the corner and Koloff pulls Scrappy in his path. Sensing an opportunity, Crusher Khrushchev begins brawling with Dick Murdoch, allowing Ivan Koloff to throw a chain over the cage. As Magnum and Nikita brawl, Uncle Ivan joins Crusher Khrushchev in brawling with Dick Murdoch, who begins to fall to the numbers game. That is until Sam Houston runs in to lend a hand. Dusty Rhodes will be there, but he's still recovering from getting clobbered with a roll of coins during his first blood match against Tully Blanchard. And he's in Greensboro since Starrcade 86 took place in Atlanta and Greensboro. Back in the cage, Nikita grabs a chain and wraps it around his arm, whipping Magnum into the ropes to finish him with a Russian sickle. However, Magnum ducks, bouncing off with a dropkick that sends Koloff into the ropes. As Nikita bounces off, the challenger lands the belly-to-belly suplex as a groggy Scrappy McGowan makes the 3 count. Magnum's third U.S. title win would lead to rematches with Nikita Koloff and more matches with Jimmy Garvin as things move towards 1987. The Russians, Ivan and Nikita Koloff, along with Crusher Khrushchev, haven't forgotten about Dick Murdoch serving as a special ringside enforcer at Starrcade. And in December, they strike, attacking Murdoch and putting him out of action for months. More NWA World Championship matches would come Magnum's way due to him being U.S. champion and thus #1 contender. However, Ric Flair would continue to find a way to thwart Magnum, often with the help of the Four Horsemen. In addition, fans would see title versus title matches as Magnum battled World Television Champion Tully Blanchard, often to draws or disqualification finishes. The arrival of Lex Luger meant a new challenge loomed for Magnum. However, Magnum isn't limited to singles matches, and he often teams with Dusty Rhodes. Meanwhile, Dick Murdoch has returned, and he has a new attitude, blaming Magnum T.A. and Dusty Rhodes for failing to come to his aid when the Russians attacked him. Murdoch gets his revenge on Magnum, delivering a brainbuster to Magnum, much as he'd done to Nikita Koloff. This led to Magnum wearing a neck brace and Dusty vowing revenge as Murdoch forms a loose alliance with Paul Jones and his team of Rick Rude and Manny Fernandez. This also leads to 6-man tag matches, with the Dream allying with the Rock and Roll Express against Rude, Fernandez, and Murdoch. Despite Murdoch's attack on Magnum, Dusty and Magnum enter the 1987 Crockett Cup Tag Team Tournament as a #2 seed, winning the trophy and the $1 million prize after they defeat Lex Luger and Tully Blanchard in the finals. Magnum continues defending his U.S. Championship as the summer nears, fighting back challenges from Dick Murdoch, Nikita Koloff, and Tully Blanchard. While Magnum's neck isn't 100%, he enters the War Games match at the Great American Bash alongside Dusty Rhodes and the Road Warriors, defeating the Four Horsemen team of Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Tully Blanchard, and Lex Luger. Magnum's popularity is soaring, and his matches against NWA World Champion Ric Flair sees him edging closer and closer to victory. Fans believe a title switch is coming soon. Behind the scenes, Magnum's popularity hasn't escaped the attention of Vince McMahon, who would love to sign one of Jim Crockett Promotions' top stars. However, so far, Magnum is content staying in the Mid-Atlantic region, not only because he's one of the promotion's top stars, but he sees the success the promotion is enjoying. The quest for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship takes a detour when Magnum drops the title to Lex Luger. As was the case with Nikita Koloff, Magnum's neck injury hampers his ability to defend the title, and the outside interference from Luger's manager James J. Dillon turns a tide in the total package's favor. After the match, Dick Murdoch attacks Magnum, laying him out with another brainbuster. Two men's feud is far from over, but as Magnum is stretchered out, fans wonder if Magnum's career is over. What's next for Magnum T.A. in this parallel universe? And when will Magnum capture the NWA World Championship? Also, how long can Magnum resist the WWF's offer to jump ship, especially when Jim Crockett Promotions' financial condition worsens? Check back for part 2 of What If Magnum Didn't Have His Car Accident. What do you think of this case of What If? Share your thoughts in the comment section and let us know if there's any videos you'd like Wrestling's Greatest Moments to cover. In the meantime, subscribe to our channel, follow us on X and Instagram, and spread the good news about Wrestling's Greatest Moments, the channel that celebrates the squared circle.